All right, let's go. All right. What do you got for me there, Cindy?
Well, we're going to go through some questions that people give you, Dad.
Right.
And this is one we got from Twitter. And it's from BBB Black and Gold, Triple B Black and Gold.
It must be a
he's
Bruin fan.
He's
Bruin
a Bruin
fan, so you know it's got to be. Okay, you often said on the podcast that you and your Bruins GM, Harry Sinnen, got mad at each other and didn't talk during the last season. What happened? Why weren't you guys getting along anymore?
You know when it started? And it all started with Red Fisher. And guys in Montreal would really know about Red Fisher. He had a great column in the Montreal Gazette, I think it was. And I could hardly wait to get there. And he was the first one that had, if it was Rocket Richard, he'd have it in dark letters. And you'd always want to read it.
Yeah,
Hey,
Steve Simmons almost, if you read in the Toronto Sun, he kind of copied that almost a little bit.
Well, I like it when that, because you can skim over to what
but
you're
he
interested in.
was the first guy that I ever saw do
Clever.
that.
Very clever.
Yeah. So anyhow, he was. I saw him after a game.
So what happened was you guys were playing the night before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were playing in Atlanta,
and Montreal Canadiens were playing and the night before, but didn't I think their GM
Sammy Pollock, the smartest guy ever in hockey,
he got the time moved so that they played in the afternoon.
Now that I think of it, he did. They were supposed to play that night, and he had it moved to the afternoon.
And then chartered to Boston, and they were in their hotel room watching you guys in Atlanta.
Yeah. So anyhow,
well, to say what happened was that you, instead of chartering out that night, you flew commercial the next morning.
At 5:00 in the morning. Anyhow, we got in, we played, and they tied it up. We were winning 2-1, and I remember the game. They tied it up, made it 2-2. So anyhow, I'm walking with Red Fisher after the game, and I remember walking with him, and I wasn't mad at all or anything, mad at anybody. And he said, well, what happened? I said, I think if we had it chartered and right back, we would have won. Geez, he walks into my office, and I'll never forget. He says, Graves says, if you weren't so cheap, you would have chartered out and you would have won the game.
He said that to Harry.
He said that to Harry, and Harry was sitting right, and Harry and I were pretty good friends, and I did say it. And Harry looked at me and he said, "Did you say that?" And I said, "Yeah."
But I bet your blood ran cold when Fisher
I
said.
almost fainted when he said it. When he walked in, and I can still see him to this day walking in and saying, "You were so cheap, you would." I don't know why. I don't know what he was thinking. Oh, I just about fainted. I tell you that right now. And Harry looked at me and he said, "Did you say that?" And I did say it. And I said, "Yeah, I said it." And I knew I was dead from there.
But there was a lot of things that you said that could have upset Harry.
Well, that was the big one.
It started. That
was the big one.
And then it went downhill from there.
Yeah, it really went downhill. But anyhow,
well, you got in trouble too with. Remember, Cindy, you were talking about the.
Oh yeah,
pucks.
well, when you put in the paper about the Phantom pucks.
Oh yeah,
that wasn't very nice.
Well, I thought it was funny.
Well, it was funny, but it made the Bruins look bad. Basically, what it was, well, you can tell.
Well, what happened was that we had practice pucks, and we used practice pucks.
For the game.
Yeah, and there was no emblem on it or anything like that. And I said, I hope a rookie doesn't score their first goal here, because it'd be tough putting a blank puck up on them. And
it made it the paper, and like that made
I thought it was funny. Evidently, it wasn't.
But you were just saying that they were just on back order, right?
What was that again?
You said the pucks were on back order, so they were going to come, but this was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I was only kidding. It didn't.
Well, can you imagine the Jacob brothers weren't too happy with that?
No,
they probably yelled at Harry, and then you catch flack.
Well, that's what that Red Fisher was the guy that started.
Well, you had an interesting, Cindy,
Well,
about
yeah.
because the whole thing at the end of your thing with Harry Dad was you were too much a player and you weren't managing.
Yeah.
That was their big beef at the end of the.
Yeah, that's true. I was same thing in Rochester.
So what I was gonna this happened the very, very first game Mom and I went to.
I didn't know this.
Oh, very first game, we walk into the Boston Gardens and Mrs. Sinden and Mrs. Who would have been
Tom Johnson's
Mrs.
wife.
Johnson meets us and says, "Okay, Rose, because we always get down there early, and what are you going to do for 2 hours before the game? And come and sit with us." And Mom goes, "Well, where's the wives' room?" "Oh no, Rose, you don't want to go in there."
I didn't know this.
And and they couldn't believe it. And Mom went in by herself because there's no way Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Sinden were going to go in there. And Mom just went in and we introduced ourselves.
I could see Tom Johnson's wife not going in, and I could see Harry Sinden's wife not going in. I never even thought of that.
Well, I don't think that would ever happen again. Like any NHL teams, the coach's wife going into the wives' room. I don't know.
So it was Mom's fault.
Yeah, let's blame her.
So you can imagine Mrs. Sinden going to Harry that night, say, "Do you believe that Rose is sitting amongst the girlfriends and the wives in the wives' room?"
Come to think of it.
And I know we told the story before, but I mean, it got so bad that last year, especially after the what Red Fisher did, that you guys didn't. They were passing notes back and forth.
Passing notes back and forth, and we did not stay at the same hotel as the general manager and his assistant general manager. Believe that or not.
That is hard to believe.
That is really bad. We stayed at a little place that wasn't far. We could walk. I forget the name of it now.
During the playoffs in Montreal.
Yeah, and they stayed downtown. Anyhow.
But it got to the point where I know we told the story before, but I think it's such a great story that Harry wrote you a note saying, "Don't play Jean Rattel." Yeah. Against Montreal, and then what did you do with the note?
I give it to Schmatzy, and I knew Schmatzy would give it to John Rattel, and he got a hat trick that night.
And then you waved to Harry.
Oh.
Then after...
I just asked to get fired.
I mean, Harry's sitting up in his box, and I'm watching TV, and you're waving.
Yeah, like a fool.
I better go, Dad's Mom, because I'm looking, I go, that's not where Mom's sitting, where Dad's looking. Mom sits... at the side, you're looking straight ahead.
You're looking up. Well,
that was Schmatzy's fault again.
I think too, you putting in the paper about who you're going to start in goal, and you go and ask your dog instead of Harry Sinden. That wouldn't exactly very
bad.
Nice.
But you guys were good friends at the start.
We were the best of friends at the start.
You're both from Kingston, right?
Both from he's from Kingston,
around Kingston,
and he lived in Kingston, and in fact. My brother bought his first house. He was a real estate guy when he was.
What, Harry was?
Yeah.
And Uncle Rich bought a house off him.
But very first house.
And wasn't he's related to Gord Downey too, or the Tragically Hip? He's like a godfather or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. I think he's godfather of.
I know
Gord
he's
Downey.
a good friend with him.
So basically, out of all this data, it's pretty much your fault.
Yep.
Cindy and Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook. And if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they'll match your deposit up to $250. You get 10 spins on the big wheel. And your first deposit, they'll spot you $25. And they've been a big supporter of the Don Cherry Pet Rescue Foundation. And we'd like to thank them for that. So our next question, Dad, comes from Twitter. Do you see they changed Twitter now? They changed the logo.
Yeah, they don't have a bird flying.
No, they got an X. I think Musk is trying, his thing is SpaceX. So I think he's trying to get X on all his things.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah,
good old marketing and branding, eh?
Yeah, I guess. So this one is Islanders 4 Cups. So obviously a New York Islander fan from Twitter. Graves, I'm a longtime Islander fan. How good was Dennis Potvin? I say he would win the Norris Trophy if he played in hockey today.
He automatically would win it. Potvin was a mean character. He didn't, unless you did something to him, But I remember Greg Shepard. I went to Greg Shepard. He cut Potvin, and I said, "Don't don't bother that
Yeah,
guy.
what are you fooling around with Potvin for?
What do you have of all guys to fool with somebody else? Don't fool with him because he's a mean guy. He'll get you. Yeah, don't worry about it. And did he get him or did he get him, Tim?
Yeah, next period, right at the blue line, Shep was kind of cutting across center, and he tore his knee out.
Ooh.
And
He
boy,
was, and he had a heavy shot. Tim, you had the record of his what he did. Okay, Tim, give us some of his stats.
Okay, so he had, just look at these numbers. 76 points, 105 penalty minutes, 98 points, 100 penalty minutes, 90 points, 103 minutes, 94 points, 81 penalty minutes, 101 points. He only got 50 penalty minutes then, must have thing. And then it just goes on, 76 points, 60 points, 60 points. His last year, retired, he had 19 goals, 51 points, 112 penalty minutes, and was plus 26. And that was his last year of playing.
And that was his last year.
That's a career year.
That's a career year. The guy now, Carlson, I'm not knocking him. He's minus 30 some.
Yeah, almost minus 30.
Yeah,
So,
he's minus 30. Yeah. And this guy retired when he was plus
26 and had amazing. But yeah, he had some.
he was and don't fool with him. He was a mean guy.
Okay, Dad, this is from Twitter, Hockey Mom 11. Don, we miss you on Saturdays. My son plays AAA, and I want to know if you think it's a good idea for him to play hockey in the summer, or do you think he should take a break?
Well, it's easy for me to say, and it's easy for the father to say, and it's easy for the mother to say. He should take some time off, so you'd be hungry in the fall. But it's not, because down the road, his friends are going to be playing hockey 12 months of the year, and you cannot go to him and say, I think you should take a month, 2 or 3 months off. In fact, you were talking about Taidami.
Well, Dell played.
Max.
Max played. Max played hockey and lacrosse and soccer in the summers, and your grandson played hockey and lacrosse.
That sounds pretty good. He did pretty good. No, the big thing is, I would like to see them take off about a month. About a month would be perfect for it, and so they'd be happy to get in there. But if their buddies are playing 12 months a year, I'm afraid to say he wants to play. Your son wants to play 12 months of the year.
So, Dad, we have another question. Jeff from Facebook. It says, "Hey, Grapes, I wanted to know why it seems that in every sport, including hockey, superstars never make good coaches."
Well, first of all, it's so, if you're Gretzky, if you're Bobby Orr, if you're somebody like that, they do everything so easy, and they can't figure out why everybody can't be as good as them. And nobody is as good as them. And
the other reason too, I think, Dad, I've met, you meet superstars, and I met, Bobby Orr, and you meet some other ones. They're so intense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Cindy? They're just so intense that, sometimes in the bench you got to be calm and you got to go like that. Remember Gretzky coaching, right?
Yeah.
And I think Gretzky was a pretty good coach, but he was the most animated coach in hockey. He was just so intense at the time.
He'd go nuts on the bench. The great hockey players, and I'm unfortunately never made great coaches, because one of the reasons was they're so intense, and everything was so easy for them. They couldn't figure out why everybody doesn't do the same as them.
On the flip side of that, then you go, why do all kind of the
Journeymen.
the journeymen, the fourth liners, why do they make?
Because they have to live by their wits, and they have to. If I would never do that, I would never do that, I would never do that, and they have to live by their wits, and nothing comes easy for them. Tim, I know Leaf fans want to know about Samsonov. He got $3.5 million US. That's US money.
Well, he went to arbitration, right?
Oh yeah, he went to arbitration, and they give him $3.5 million. He wanted. I forget what he wanted.
He got close. He wanted 4.
He wanted 4.8.
Something like that.
Yeah. He did okay in the playoffs, and about Christmas next year, you'll be talking all about the Samsonov unless he gets hurt.
I think the one thing that Bettman and I think some of the owners are going to start dealing with is the long-term injury. Like they're getting Matt Murray, who is making $5 million. Is he injured or isn't he injured?
Well,
but they're sending him down, and you're putting on long-term injury, and they're paying him, and his $5 million comes off the cap.
Yeah. So,
and then you had the last time, even this year.
I don't know. How can they tell a guy is not injured?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? But, you look at what Tampa did. Their number one guy, he was ready to come back. They said, no, just sit out to the playoffs because the cap doesn't account during the playoffs, right? So
and he had a great year.
So great
playoffs.
Good playoffs. So they were like $8 million over the cap, and it kind of happened again this year in Vegas that they took advantage.
Tough to say a guy's injured or not injured. I mean, how do you do? You get a doctor? That's the only way you can do it.
So, Dad, some sad news in the Boston.
Well, sad news as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Patrice Bergeron retires.
Tim, give his record.
His last, again, he must be injured because his last season, again, he's like Potvin we just talked about. One of his best seasons is
Patrice Bergeron.
So he had 58 points, 27 goals. He was plus 35, and
plus 35.
I think he had 7 game-winning goals.
I can't believe that he's going to retire. And he said he's going to retire.
Yeah.
I guess he wants to go out on top. The only thing I can think of.
Well, on top, they got knocked out first round. He's going out on the bottom.
But his record is there. It sounds pretty good. And I guess he wants to go out on top. And boy, he was the guy that if you're behind a goal, you'd want him out there. Or if you're ahead of goal, you'd want him out there. He was the ultimate hockey player. But Tim, that Selke trophy was never meant for a guy like him.
No, because he put up a lot of points.
He put up a lot of points. And I remember Mr. Selke when he first put this, it was for a guy like Gainey, who never got many points, but did a lot of checking and a lot of the dirty work. And anyhow, Patrice Bergeron, you wonder
why they wouldn't go say, look, you don't have to practice. Come into practice a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
And you're going to play the power play. We're going to get you to kill some penalties, and because he was their best face-off guy.
By far.
And he had 7 game-winning goals. And I guess if you don't want to play, you don't want to play. But he's
wants to go on top, I guess.
I don't think why you say he's on top. It was embarrassing. They got knocked out first.
He went out on top.
No, I can see what Dad's saying.
Well, he went out on top.
I think there's nothing more pathetic than watching a player continue playing and his play and his stats just keep going down and down. And
well, I don't know. I would have him out there if it were down a goal. I would have him out there if I was up a goal. I'd have him out there all the time because I tell you something, boy, he was a beautiful hockey player.